What's going on? We back. Motor City Sports Talk. We in the building. It's your boy CJ Goodfellas. It's a cool day in Detroit. And just had like a really, really bad heat wave over the last couple weeks. We back. Season preview. Seattle Seahawks. We go and preview each Detroit Lions opponent in 2018. And this time we are talking about the Seattle Seahawks, who are the Detroit Lions' Week 8 opponent. You know, they come into Ford Field October 28th, 1 p.m. startup time. So October 28th, Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks will be in Ford Field. And the last two times we faced the Seahawks, we lost. Wild card game 2017, and then the infamous 2015. I think it was a Sunday or Monday night game where Cam Chancellor stripped Calvin Johnson, and it went out the back of the end zone. It should have been the Lions ball, and they cheated us, and we lost 10-13. In the playoffs, we got whooped. It was a meltdown. Antoine Bolden was getting, personal PI, not personal pass interference, but he's getting like personal foul calls and 15-yard penalties. We just, had a bad game that game, but in the playoffs. But it's no stranger to Detroit, man. Hopefully we turn the corner. But Seattle is a totally different looking team. They lost two of their best tight ends, Jimmy Graham to the Packers, and Luke Wilson to the Detroit Lions. Both to the NFC North. Also, they have old Detroit Lions cornerback Alex Carter on the roster as well. They also lost Cam Chancellor to retirement. They released Cliff Averill. He might retire with a neck injury. They both had neck injuries. They lost Sheldon Richardson that came over from a trade from New York last year. I think he went to Minnesota or he went somewhere. I can't exactly remember where he went, but they lost him as well. And they possibly could be losing Earl Thomas. It's still been a lot of trade rumors talking about Earl Thomas could be getting traded to the Dallas Cowboys. He tracked down Jason Garrett last year and told him to come get him and put him on the Cowboys. Also, they acquire rookie Rashad Penny. A lot of guys in the Detroit Lions football community on social media wanted the Lions to take Rashad Penny, and he was projected to go second to third round. Most people thought it was a massive reach when they picked him in the first round. Also, they bring over six-time Pro Bowler Brandon Marshall, used to be one of my favorite receivers, good possession receiver as well. Him and Doug Baldwin like to pick up the slack. They also retain J.D. McKisson, and still got C.J. Prostrace. I can't remember that guy's name. I'm sorry. They got rid of Luke Jokel, which I didn't even know he was on the team. They brought in Dwayne Brown. I'm not sure if he been there or not been there, but Dwayne Brown used to be the old Texan left tackle. So they had some turnover, man. They still got the Bobby Wagner. KJ Wright. They bring in Bartavius Mingo, which the Lions could have drafted him. We took Ziggy Ansah, thank God. Because Bartavius Mingo hasn't really panned out in the league. They bring back Byron Maxwell, who used to be their old corner as well. He had a tough time in Miami and tough time in Philly. This is a totally different team. That's what I'm getting at. This team is definitely in rebuilding mode. This team is basically run by one engine, one heart, one soul, one player, Russell Wilson. This is his team now. No more Marshawn Lynch. No more nothing for them. Most of the people is gone on defense. Richard Sherman is gone. They bring in Shaquille Griffin's little brother, Shaquem Griffin. He's the guy that got his hands amputated as a kid. The one-handed linebacker. That's a freakish athlete as well out of Central Florida University. So it's some turnover here, man. I think this team is going to take a huge step backwards. But if they take a huge step forward to stay in neutral, it's going to be because of Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson, on my other channel, I rank Wilson as a top 5 quarterback. And looking at his numbers and looking at the type of offensive line that he has, I think that's the right ranking for him, man. He's an amazing player. Seattle has basically stripped him of everything. They don't help him do nothing, He makes ordinary receivers and ordinary players look good. He didn't have a real running game. He still produced when they say, Marshawn Lynch was the running game. They brought Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham couldn't produce. You know what I'm saying? They brought all these different running backs in here that couldn't produce, Some is gone. Some they retain. So, he's definitely, the dude that make this thing go. They don't block for him or nothing. He make it happen. And like I said, I think he's a very, very special quarterback in Russell Wilson. And it was a time when people said, the defense lifting him up. This guy was making big throws and making big plays happen, year in and year out. And as far as the defense goes for them, they got Frank Clark from the University of Michigan. Most of us know him. He's starting to come into his own as a pass rusher. And they brought Deion Jordan in. He was a Miami Dolphin from Oregon. He just never really put it together. He remind you of William Golston. That was from a local Detroit guy. Went to Ohio State. Was a freakish athlete, but just wasn't a football player. And I think Deion Jordan is the same way. But if they can revive Deion Jordan and reach his potential, he could be a problem. But it's too much turnover on this defense. If Earl Thomas leave, they're gonna have a tough time next year. They had people say, "Oh, it was a scheme." It was a scheme. They had players. That cover 3 scheme they was running, that was because they had good players. They front end and back end work really, really well together. And now, they starting to tear it up and rebuild on the fly. And hopefully Russell Wilson can hold down the fort. But I think it's some payback. I smell some payback if the Lions are healthy by the time this game rolls around October 28th. Like I said, man, they're not able to protect Russell Wilson. He's Houdini in the back in the backfield, making stuff happen. He can rush. He's always dangerous to play against, but no tight end. They drafted a tight end. I mean, Rashad Penny is a weapon. We know that, but offensively, this team could struggle if Wilson ain't on. And he has his times when he's on and when he's off sometimes. And it depends on Brandon Marshall still can produce. Paul Richardson, he went to Washington. So they got Tyler Lockett in the slot and Doug Baldwin. It's going to be a tough. I really don't worry about them as much on offense because Wilson get hot. He hot and cold. But I worry about them on defense. Especially if they trade Earl Thomas, it's going to be a tough time. It's a lot of pressure on Mingo and Deion Lewis and Deion Jordan, and Frank Clark to produce. It's a lot of pressure on them to produce. And if they don't produce, and they haven't produced in other places besides Frank Clark, he's coming on. But Lewis and Mingo, this team going to have a hard time. Like I said, I'm not going to do wins and losses for Detroit Lions season and go in the beginning. But this is a very, very winnable game on paper because the Seattle is in transition mode. But they're not going to be in hard transition mode. The NFC West is going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough for them to conquer that. And I think the Lions, they're going to pose a lot of trouble to Seattle. They don't have the secondary they once had anymore. And also, we took Deshaun Shea from them as well. So they got a lot of young guys in the secondary, especially if Earl Thomas chooses to move, or they choose to move him. If the Lions can block this season and run the ball, they're going to make a deep, deep run in these playoffs. But like I said, Seattle is always a good coach team. Russell Wilson always going to give you a chance to win and win playoffs and win Super Bowls. Respect that organization. But like I said, it's just turnover right now. They had a lot of high-pressed players, guys getting injured, guys getting old. They were just the youngest team, one of the youngest teams in the NFL like 3, 4, 5 years ago when turnover happened. So ain't no thing. They'll bounce back and they get the right pieces in place, and they'll be back in a few years and back younger, stronger than ever. But they got the most important piece, and that's the quarterback. But that's a season preview on Seattle Seahawks. October 28th, I believe I said week 8 at Ford Field. And, I like the Lions' chances in that game, if they're healthy, but it's too far ahead to call. But I just wanted to, spotlight the Seattle Seahawks real quick on our schedule. And we on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Check the link out in the description. We out.